21 past the hour. So this new report that comes from a committee of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. And the association has a membership of 121,200 scientists and science supporters around the planet. The report emphasizes that the experts have come to a consensus with only a few dissenters. This is not an open debate as the pigs, the murderers in the society, the killers, the ones who want to kill the planet would have you believe. The report says, based on well-established evidence, about 97% of climate scientists have concluded that human-caused climate change is happening. End quote. Now, that's not the same as claiming that all questions about climate change have been answered. And see, this is where the right-wingers throw a monkey wrench into the average befuddled, addled American's brain. If 3% of the climate scientists don't agree with these conclusions, then the deniers can say, well, now, there's two sides to this. And this is what happens in corporate media. If I go on camera and I'm a corporate media person and I have a ball, a beach ball, and I say this is a beach ball, and then some right-winger says, well, that's not a beach ball, that's a beach triangle. And I can say, well, no, it's a ball. Everybody agrees it's a ball. Well, I don't think it's a ball. I think it's a triangle. So from that point on, whenever the topic of the beach ball comes up, this phony ass, well, this side and that side comes into play, so that the next commentator says, well, now, as discussed on a program the other day about beach balls, and there is some dissent. Some people say it's a beach triangle. It's that kind of insanity where it concerns global climate change. So, the conclusion by 97% of these scientists is that global climate change is happening. And again, that's not the same as claiming that all questions have been answered. In fact, enormous questions remain. And the science of global warming requires robust investigation, explanation, questioning, measuring, trying to do things going back 150,000 years, going back a million years, using ice core samples that have been down there for millennia. Of course, the Christians and the right-wingers and the anti-science and the anti-education people will tell you that's nonsense. There was nothing beyond 7,000 years ago. So why are you bringing this stuff up to me and telling me, but we have evidence of what happens with global climate change based on what happened 24,000 years ago? And they'll look you in the eye and tell, there was no 24,000 years ago. You're a liar. Rush is right. Now, this new report, in this attempt to make it so that you and I can understand it. I mean, I don't have a problem understanding this, but I'm using the editorial we, so that we can understand this, okay? A new report walks through a series of potential consequences of planetary warming without asserting that any is sure to happen. But there are some possible / potential / probable consequences to deal with. They're possibilities, not certainties, and the distinction is crucial for an intelligent public debate to take place around these issues and about what to do. The worst case forecasts include severe food shortages as warming makes it harder to grow crops, an accelerating rise of sea level that would inundate coastlines too rapidly for humanity to adjust to that. Extreme heat waves, droughts, floods, and a large-scale extinction of plants and animals. These are clear possibilities. I'm not even going to say probabilities. They are events or circumstances or results that need to be discussed. The science needs to be presented, not the garbage that comes out of the mouth of these right-wing religious and right-wing political freaks. That is not science. That's not debate. That's not discussion. That is corporatist propaganda that is put there at the demand of the fossil fuel industry. Don't let them talk about all that stuff. Jesus, God, tell them there's dissent in the ranks. Dr. Molina says what's extremely clear is that there's a risk, a very significant risk. You don't need 100% certainty for society to act. Well, if we were dealing with all or a majority sane people, maybe not. But that's not what we have in this country and a lot of other countries, but especially in this country. We'll be right back. Now, regarding this attempt by literally thousands of scientists who realize that they're not getting their message across, and they understand that the reason is two or threefold. First, that they're not getting their message across. First of all, is the in so many instances the functional illiteracy that we Americans have, where it concerns math and science, just the way it is. And it's just the way it is because the idea of education for the sake of education has been totally, pretty much destroyed. That's A. B, the attempt to negate science with all this religious crap that's going on right now. But so that functional illiteracy of the American people is one thing, and that can be addressed. Scientific illiteracy, that can be addressed. It can be worked with. You take the average kid that goes to school, you can make the argument that that child is scientifically illiterate until evidence is presented to the child, like, okay, this is called gravity. We don't know what it is, but it works. We can't explain the theory of gravity. It has to do with attraction and repulsion and stuff like that. But we know that gravity is real. And you just build from that point until if you've sent your kid to a good educational facility, whether it's public or private, is of course that's your choice. But if that child has gotten information that is scientifically correct, then that child is going to lose his or her illiteracy, scientific illiteracy, or whatever it is, and become educated. So the scientists would like to approach us on that level. That's A. B is the fact that we have an anti-science, pro-corporate, pro-religion power in this country that seems to be uncheckable. When you take the Koch brothers, for example, they're probably the primary example of 21st century mass killers who will never probably actually pull a trigger or drop a bomb, but what they do results and will result in the deaths of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. We know this. We know this. I mean, this is not disputable. We also have a political class that is now owned outright by corporate America. Corporate America is not a human entity. It's a human construct, but it's not, it doesn't have feelings. It doesn't think. There are certain rules that are followed, capitalist corporate rules of economics that are followed in this path to destruction, to utter and absolute destruction. And the people who support that form of destruction do everything in their power to make sure we stay stupid, ignorant. And that's why corporate America is willing to see that a filthy, destructive human being like Rush Limbaugh is paid $20, $30, $40 million a year to be a mass killer. So they understand that they have to overcome the political propaganda, the corporate propaganda. The scientists understand this. So what they're going to do, well, some of the scientists on Dr. Molina's committee like to point out that people can be pretty intelligent about managing the risk that you have in your life, that we all have in our lives, in our personal lives. It's unlikely, for example, that your house or my house is going to burn down, but we have insurance in case it does. I mean, that, you know, we spend hundreds of dollars a year on insurance. When you drive to work in the morning, the odds are that, well, they're low, that some careless freak is going to slam into you, but it's possible. So we have car insurance. Ta-da! We are so goddamn smart. Look at us. And the auto industry, at the insistence of government, has spent tens of billions of dollars putting seat belts in airbags and so on and so forth. I remember the argument about seat belts. Well, that infringes on my right to ride. You know, what in the hell? The same argument with these freaks, the motorcycle freaks who will not wear a helmet. Now, I support that idea, and I support it because there is a shortage of vital organs in this country. And whenever you see a guy or a girl or a couple of people on a motorcycle and they're driving helmetless, just wave and say thank you. Thank you. Because, you know, eventually, odds are fairly good that they're going to have a collision and they're going to die. And there will be organs, multiple organs, available for people who don't want to die, who will, when they get a transplant, probably wind up riding a motorcycle with a helmet on. But I digress. The issue of how much to spend on lowering greenhouse gases is, in essence, a question about how much insurance we want to buy against these worst-case scenarios. That's all. Scientists can't decide that for us. And this report that I'm telling you about recognizes that by avoiding any specific recommendations about what to do. But it makes clear that lowering emissions by some means is the only way to lower the risk. Wearing a seatbelt lowers the risk. Putting on a helmet lowers the risk. No, you can say, sure, of course, you can still slam into a tree at 80 miles an hour and a helmet is not going to do a goddamn thing for you. You're still going to be dead, but it lowers the risk. And that's what these scientists are trying to get across. And because so many people are confused about the science or totally ignorant about the science, this nation has never really had a frank discussion, political discussion about the options, what's available to us. See, this is the thing. If there was a national forum online, if all the television networks would participate in this at one specific time, that no matter where you went, radio, television, or the internet, you would be confronted with a discussion on a particular day. If you don't want it, then you know, go do something else. But for anyone who tuned in to anything electronic, your iPhone, anything, you would see a discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what the science tells us we're faced with. We have got to come up with a solution. We have got to figure out how to do this, or the whole planet is going to suffocate. It's that simple. Now, let's have a discussion about this. Now, you know and I know we have the technology to do that. No, we can't force people to pick up their cell phone or their iPad or their computer or their television or their radio or their whatever the hell they listen to. We can't compel people to do that. But with the discussion out there, and this is what these scientists are saying, if we can just have the goddamn discussion. They don't cuss. I cuss. Now, let me show you how it could work. A few decades ago, the world confronted a similar question regarding chemicals called chlorofluorocarbons. Do you remember that? Do you remember the ozone hole thing over the South Pole? Remember that? Chlorofluorocarbons were in refrigerators, air conditioners, cans of hairspray, deodorant, everything. At a Fort Lauderdale, Florida conference in 1972, a California scientist named F. Sherwood Rowland learned that they were accumulating in the air, these chlorofluorocarbons. What, he wondered, would happen to them? And he eventually put a young researcher in his laboratory. Ta-da! The Dr. Molina I'm telling you about. And to their shock, the team that Molina was on figured out that the chemicals that comprise chlorofluorocarbons would break down the ozone layer, a blanket of gas high above the ground that protects the world from devastating levels of ultraviolet radiation. And as the scientific evidence of this risk accumulated, the public demanded action and eventually got it in the form of a global treaty that phased out those particular compounds. Global warming has been much harder to understand, not least because of the disinformation campaign financed by elements of the fossil fuel industry. We'll be back in a second. You know, this article I've been quoting from the New York Times waits until they are 3 sentences from the end before they say, global warming has been much harder to understand, not least because of a disinformation campaign financed by elements of the fossil fuel industry. Okay, I used to work in a journalistic setting, and I understand that a sentence like that has to be that kind of bland. I wouldn't say a disinformation campaign financed by elements of the fossil fuel industry. You know what I would say. You know, the lies that are put out there as a deliberate effort, and a successful one, to distort the truth. This is what right-wing politics is all about. This is all they do, is distort the truth. If you are listening to a right-wing figure, whether it's political, media, religious, economics, it doesn't matter. They are liars from the get-go. Their nature is to lie. It's not that they have studied on how to lie and become a liar. It's their nature. Once a person declares himself or herself to be of the so-called conservative persuasion, they lose their ability to ever tell the truth under any circumstances about anything. They lie to their spouses, their children. They lie, lie, lie. And that is true where it concerns the lies that have been put out. It hasn't been disinformation campaign. It's been a lie campaign. And it has been financed by the fossil fuel industry to the point where people die. That's old news. You heard Bob Kincaid and I talking about this last night. This has been going on for a century. The fossil fuel industry in this country is about killing people in the process of making their profit. But the new report is a recognition among scientists that they bear some responsibility for the confusion, that their well-meaning attempts to convey all the nuances and uncertainties of a complex issue such as global warming have somehow fudged the core message about the risks that are facing us, are coming at us like a freight train. And the report that I'm talking about here reflects their mission to try to resolve, to try again by cleaning up the clutter. And the question is, will the American people hear the message this time? I don't think that it's difficult for me to get the words out because it is such a critical issue. It's difficult for me to say, no, I don't think the American people will get the message this time. That is difficult to say unless I say it as a throwaway line. But if I try to say it from my heart, from studying this article and from knowing that this report is out there now, and it's only 18 pages. It's entitled What We Know. That's all. Whether or not the American public will accept that, will listen to it, will engage in a discussion about the realities of global warming, not a discussion about the nutcases who are saying none of this is happening. It's not happening. It's not happening. Yes, it is. So that is my reluctance. There is my reluctance to believe that the American public will, at this point, I don't know how the hole in the ozone thing. I remember that back in the late 70s. And I remember hearing, oh my God, they're going to get rid of this propellant in sprays. Well, what the hell is that going to do? And I can remember standing in the house where I was living and spraying some right guard or something into the air and looking at it go, and, fall down on the floor. And stupid me, I'm standing there, I think, well, that's not going to the South Pole. See what I mean? So it took a while, not very long, because, I don't have a steep learning curve when somebody wants to explain something regarding science or my survival to me. I will listen real intently, and I don't hear voices over here saying, Jesus will take care of it all, or Allah makes that decision, or any of that garbage. I will listen. So will that happen with this new effort by scientists to try to get the information out and at least engender a discussion about the risks? I wonder.